Collins with the Story Desk here at News Center, Maine. And we're partnering with the Maine-Monitor to bring you some of the reporting being done of journalists at the nonprofit independent publication. We'll be featuring one of their stories every Monday. Today, we're talking about education. The COVID-19 pandemic changed a lot in everyday lives, especially when it comes to the way kids learn. In Maine, there's been an uptick in children being homeschooled, with some parents choosing to form co-ops, sometimes associated with churches. Here to talk more about this is Sean Scott, a reporter with the Maine-Monitor. Hi, Sean.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm great, thank you. How many students are homeschooled in Maine, and how has that shifted since the pandemic?
Yeah, so right now there are, or I should say in the last school year, 24-25, there were almost 12,000 students in Maine who were homeschooled. That was a pretty significant increase from pre-pandemic. In the 2019-20 school year, about 3.6% of students in Maine were homeschooled, and that shot up the first year of the pandemic. It did ease a little bit for a couple years after that, but for the past 2 years, it's been swinging upwards again. This is the 24-25 school year. There were about 6.4% of students were homeschooled, and that's the highest level since the 2020-21 school year at the height of the pandemic. And I did kind of a district-by-district breakdown of this, and what I found was that in the last academic year, in more than 50 districts across the state, at least 1 in 10 students were homeschooled, and that is actually more districts than that was the case for at the height of the pandemic.
Oh, wow. Did you notice any county specifically that you saw that more in?
Yeah, it was most common in northern and central Maine.
Okay. And why are more parents choosing to homeschool their children?
Yeah, so there are a lot of different reasons for homeschooling. Some of it is religious, some of it is safety-based or learning-based, just what works for different parents. But a lot of the people who I spoke to talked about the feeling during the pandemic when they were forced to kind of have their kids at home and learning remotely, that functioned as a confidence booster for some parents who kind of weren't thinking about homeschooling before then, but once they had their kids at home and they were at home with them, they just saw that the model worked better for them than they anticipated. So a lot of people came into it that way. The pandemic also came around the same time as Maine passed a law removing religious and philosophical exemptions for school-mandated vaccines. So for parents who are opposed to vaccines for any reason, homeschooling is kind of the only option for them. That law went into effect in 2021, so some of the homeschoolers post-pandemic have been homeschooling because they are hesitant about vaccinations. And there is still like a decent religious aspect to it, although that's not always the case. There was a Washington Post study from 2023 where I think 3/4 of parents said that they were homeschooling because they had concerns about the school environment, and then about 2/3 were because they wanted to provide moral instruction, and 1/3 were parents who wanted to provide some form of religious instruction.
And what are homeschool co-ops? I've never heard that before. And what do they look like in Maine?
Yeah, so co-ops have kind of, with the rise of homeschooling post-pandemic, they've also seen a boom. I spoke to about 5 different co-ops across the state. Many of them were based out of churches. And some co-ops start as just informal parent groups where they're looking for opportunities to kind of socialize their kids. They might get together once a week and just kind of be in the same room as other people, because homeschooled students otherwise might not have as many opportunities like that. When you decide to homeschool in Maine, you have to send a letter to the state saying that that's your intention, and you take the core responsibility for educating your child. So when you send them to a co-op as a homeschool parent, you are still exerting some level of control over that. Most of the co-ops that I spoke to, they have parents on site all day. They're only meeting as a co-op maybe once a week, and they're really enrichment focused, or focused on like getting opportunities to socialize or doing activities that may be harder to do with one kid or one family. So that's like phys ed, marine biology, music, different topics like that. They're much bigger now than pre-pandemic, I think. A lot of the ones that I talked to had doubled or tripled in size. There are 2 in Belfast that run out of the same building, and one of them has 120 students now, the other has 50. So that's bigger than some rural school districts in the state. And like I said, a lot of them are kind of religious or they have church backgrounds. Some of them require that their members attend a specific church or attend church generally, but they really kind of run the gamut in terms of what their priorities are. And I think that that is a model that's probably going to continue increasing. All of the ones that I talked to have seen big growth over the past 5 years and even have wait lists at this point where they expect the demand to just keep going up for them.
Wow. And I did want to ask, though, because with co-ops, I was thinking in my head a smaller number, like, oh, maybe there's 7, 9 students. 120 students, that's a lot. Do you think because of remote learning and some parents working remotely that it's made it more plausible for them to be able to homeschool their children?
I think that may play a role in it. A lot of the families that I talked to may be single income families, or parents have like chosen to step back to part-time to make it happen, because there is a financial barrier to homeschooling. But the co-ops are kind of another support system available to them in that way. And they are very parent-run as well. They're all volunteer-based, and then the parents are kind of leading the co-ops themselves. But I could see remote work playing into that as well, for sure.
Awesome. Sean, Scott, thank you so much for joining us. And you can read the full story and much more at the-maine-monitor.org. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.